Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Ringside Review. I am Athan Hristodulu, joined alongside, as always, by Nesson.com writer Jason Ounpraseuth. We're talking Monday Night Raw. We're also going to sprinkle in some Elimination Chamber discussion, plenty to get into after another eventful Monday night. But first, Jason, before we get things rolling, I need to give you some credit here. Major props on you for calling out Ricky Starks, literally jumping onto NXT the night that we discussed this. Shout out to you on that one. That was a fantastic call. What do you think of his debut? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, kind of an interesting timing for that because I assumed he had that typical 90-day no compete clause. I guess he didn't, and so it turns out he might not actually have a name. That was kind of interesting. Kind of teased his name wasn't Ricky Starks, and so I could tell probably this is probably a last minute kind of thing. So probably something to watch week to week, probably.
Definitely. I thought it was a little interesting with the way, because the only reason I knew this even happened was because I saw WWE tweet out, "He's here," and everyone's like, "Who's here?" And so naturally I'm like, all right, NXT's going on. Let's see what's happening. Sure enough, Ricky Starks is out there. He's cutting a promo. Nobody's saying his name, and he even himself, you all know who I am, or at least it seems like they do. So that was some awesome stuff. I had to give you props on that. I thought that was hilarious. Literally, first thing I thought of when I was watching it came to my mind. But Monday Night Raw, a lot happened. A little more progression on Gunther and Jey Uso. We got some clarity on what's going on between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Elimination Chamber matches have finally been settled. We'll start with Owens and Zayn, because this is something that you and we discussed a little bit last week. And I'll be honest, I don't want to say I was down on it, but I wasn't excited for it. But now, after seeing the way this has been framed a little bit, and we're heading into Elimination Chamber with it being an unsanctioned match, I actually think there's some room to really tell a bit of a story here, because with Zayn, the way he talked last night about it, it was more of a personal type of thing. You could look at the way Owens kind of always got one up on him as a way to progress his career prior to this, but now it's more personal. He was trying to hurt Zayn, so I like the angle that they're kind of take here, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it because it adds a wrinkle, and I saw the way you wrote this out in the notes here, and I'm going to spin an idea to you in a second, but I just want to hear your overall thoughts. Unsanctioned, in Toronto, Elimination Chamber, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of kind of odd that this wasn't a WrestleMania match. It kind of just feels like, especially like you said, how personal this all is. It kind of feels ripe for WrestleMania, but also these guys are Canadian, and so it's kind of makes sense for these guys to have a big match in Canada, and especially with that crowd. I mean, WrestleMania crowds are awesome in itself, but still a Canadian crowd with these, Canadian, I guess, sons or heroes, however you want to describe them. That's definitely what they have to do. The unsanctioned aspect of this is interesting. I was kind of researching of like how many unsanctioned matches there were, and the past couple have been kind of lackluster. I don't know how much you looked into this, Athan, but one of them that stood out was a Drew McIntyre Jey Uso unsanctioned match on SmackDown in 2020. This was during the Thunderdome era, and so kind of a grain of salt, but still, like, it just seemed kind of weird. I guess maybe not weird, but still, WWE doesn't have a great track record of unsanctioned matches, to say the least.
Yeah, I think some of that might be in part due to just like the PG nature that WWE has had over the last, decade and a half, 20 years now, however long it's actually been since they've gone that way. But also maybe just not necessarily the right people going against each other in an unsanctioned match. Because like even off the top, just hearing Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre without any other frame of reference, it does not intrigue me. But with the relationship and story that these two guys have together, I'm a little more bought in on this, because my theory with this now here, because I love spitting these theories out when we do this, is that this unsanctioned match could potentially lead to something, because I noticed in your notes, you said curious why this isn't like WrestleMania and why it's being in Toronto, which obviously Toronto makes a lot of sense. It potentially goes no contest. It's so personal. These guys are so willing to beat each other down to the very end that maybe it goes no contest, no decision type deal. It ends with just neither of them being able to continue. And it's something that they turn into, we get a bigger blow off, maybe a last man standing, maybe a Hell in a Cell, something like that we kind of speculated on last week at WrestleMania. So maybe it's like a stepping stone to what is the eventual blow off. But having them in Toronto, in my eyes, it does make a ton of sense. But that's probably the angle I think they could take it if they want to have this at both Elimination Chamber, where they're both from, plus being able to have this catapult into WrestleMania as a big final blow-off where they can hopefully settle this score and we don't have to revisit this again in another year or two down the road.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it really depends on the competitors, and these guys are, every time they've been in the ring, they've always delivered. And like some of the other ones, I was kind of just picking out the bad ones, but some of the good ones were in NXT, like Kyle O'Reilly gets Adam Cole, and Gargano and Ciampa also had an unsanctioned match also, and so those were actually some of the better unsanctioned matches. I'm kind of interested. I guess how they would execute that idea of yours, Ethan. Like if, like you said, WWE is kind of in this PG era, in this little like Paul Levesque Triple H era. They've kind of leaned, I guess, against some of the PG nature, and so if they do it right in terms of maybe a double knockout or no contest, like you said, I can maybe buy into that. But I'm very curious about the execution of your idea if they actually go through with that.
Yeah, my thought is probably some major spot that leaves them both just lying there, and it's one of those things where maybe Adam Pearce comes running out because he sounded so concerned booking the whole thing last night that it ends up just being, we got to stop this. Like, I know I said I couldn't stop it, but like we have to stop this kind of situation, and then it just leads to the eventual meeting one more time at Mania where we get like an official, this is how we wrap it type of deal. The other thing that we got to discuss, because we talked about it last week, and I think it still kind of holds a little bit of weight here, the build between Gunther and Jey. I think it's poetic that I'm sitting here now complaining about the build back-to-back weeks after saying I was okay with Jey winning the Rumble, because I don't feel like we're really getting anywhere other than just seeing in some different way, recycled version of Gunther intimidation, Jey Uso showing he's not afraid. And we have about 2 months until WrestleMania, just about, honestly, a day away from that. And how many more times can we see Gunther come out, say he doesn't take Jey seriously? Last night, obviously, making fun of Jey with the entrance, basically intimidating him, and then Jey coming out and showing, I have no fear of you. I need a new direction for this, because again, I'm interested in the idea of Jey winning the Rumble and them going against the grain of picking a more logical option, but the execution is not quite there, and it's just kind of disappointing me to this point.
Yeah, it seems like a weird inverse of our earlier discussion with Owens and Zayn. I felt like that feud could have built to WrestleMania. Instead, they're doing an Elimination Chamber. This one kind of feels like they're building to Elimination Chamber with not actually building to WrestleMania. It's like it's a weird kind of thing. Like you said, like what else can they do after this for like 2 months? Like the best scenario I can see is probably like an injury angle, probably to Jey Uso. I would be hesitant against that because I feel like WWE really values that entrance and just having that on Netflix every week. And so I don't know if they want to risk having Jey not be on TV, or I guess on streaming, or however you want to describe it, just for multiple weeks at a time. I think they do want Jey Uso on every week. And so, like you said, I don't know how they're going to do this, but it's been pretty shaky so far, even though I did thoroughly enjoy Gunther's parts of his, I guess, part of the feud.
Yeah, I saw your note about not being the biggest fan of Pat McAfee. I love the little intimidation angle they had going on there between them. That honestly interested me more than anything else, because I'm like, is Pat McAfee going to somehow get involved in this? Like, what are we doing right here type of deal? But again, it for me, it's not. I don't want to sit here and say it's not good. It's just I want to see more than just what feels like recycled versions of the same thing being done in a slightly different light, I guess, to this point. But I'm hopeful that maybe over the next few weeks we start to see some differentiation of how they're going to build this matchup. The next thing I wanted to bring up to you, because this is something that I think is really starting to come to a head, the Judgment Day. Tensions are high. Everyone lost. It was a clean 0-3 sweep for them. Finn Balor is hard-knowing Dom Mysterio about adding another member. Raquel lost to someone who is literally maybe a third of her size. And Finn Balor, in one of the biggest moments he's had in quite some time, came up short and ultimately lost to Seth Rollins. Are we seeing an eventual split here? Because it feels like this group is fractured and is only getting worse. And I think it's interesting that we see Damian Priest and then, of course, Rhea Ripley as well both leave. It seems like they were almost the glue to this group, even while Rhea was gone. And they're just falling to completely apart to this point here. And I don't know how the collapse works, if maybe we end up getting a Dom versus Finn angle or something like that. But I know that there was a moment in time where WWE was teasing, like maybe it wasn't Dom that Liv Morgan, blanking on her there, Liv Morgan was interested in. Maybe it was more so Finn Balor because they have a history with the mixed tag team competition. like maybe they throw some sort of wrench in that way, but just where are we going with the Judgment Day at this point? Because they have literally nothing going for them. And again, 0-3 sweep last night. Everyone lost.
Yeah, especially since next week you have Liv and Raquel going for the tag titles against Bianca and Naomi, and also Liv in the Elimination Chamber as well. And so I think we could see more piling losses for them, and like you said, more of a fracturing of the Judgment Day. And it's I do agree with you that Rhea and Damian Priest were the glue to that faction, because after they left, Dominic, he's just more of a comedy act at this point. He's not really there as a serious wrestler. I know he had that match against AJ, but still, like, no one's really expecting AJ to lose in his first match back in like nearly a couple months to Dominic Mysterio. And so we could probably see Finn and Dom go at it. And I could see maybe they want to build Dominic as a more serious competitor if they want to do that. I mean, they have to do something with him at some point, you would think, especially given like how much reaction he gets from the crowd. And so I could definitely see some sort of blow off angle at WrestleMania. Not sure how they do it, especially since like everyone else, like Carlito is also a comedy act at this point also. And so I don't really see how logically they could get there, but I think they will eventually get there with Finn possibly in some type of WrestleMania match against either maybe both Carlito and Dominic if they want to do that.
Yeah, I feel like this might be gearing up for something like that, and it seems like the tension between Dom and Finn is starting to build. And honestly, for the sake of just adding some spice to the whole situation, it would be insane if they maybe did go the angle of like maybe Liv Morgan ultimately turns on Dom and runs off with Finn, and they start doing an angle together, something like that. But it definitely feels like we are heading towards, and this is a faction that has been around for what feels like the better part of 2 or 3 years now, but like what feels like an eventual complete and utter split that has seen a lot of face changes from the Edge era to being led by Rhea and Damian to now not both of them are gone, and it's just, I guess, Finn and Dom trying to lead the way with Carlito's antics, and of course now Liv Morgan doing her thing on the side with them as well. Quick note, because you did mention AJ Styles, something I did not know I was going to be excited for, and I'm really looking forward to: AJ Styles, Braun Breaker. I'm all in. I'm sold. I think those two are going to have an incredible match. I'm really hoping we get something good at Elimination Chamber and maybe even again at WrestleMania. That's a match I did not know I wanted, but WWE's teasing it, and I'm here for it.
I'm with you as well. I've been kind of warming up to Braun Breaker as a in-ring guy. He's kind of, obviously very green. He does have that pedigree of the Steiner family, but still, he was very green, coming off from football and, doing the NXT Performance Center kind of thing. But I think he's really grown as a competitor. He's got a ton of charisma. His bank skills have gotten better, at least as much as getting more reps on the mic. And so working with AJ, seasoned veteran, one of the best in-ring guys of all time, definitely a very good guy to really get his seasoning in, especially on a big stage of WrestleMania, if that is the match that they're going with.
Absolutely. I think, and especially the crowd getting behind him, the barking is getting louder and louder each week for Braun. And I love that he stayed away from the Steiner name, and he's really grinding in his own image, and it's honestly working out far better than I thought it was going to. And each and every week, I feel like I'm walking away more and more impressed. Now, one last thing before we go and send people off: the Elimination Chamber is officially set for the chamber matches. We got all 6 women, we got all 6 men. I would like to hear just your overall thoughts. We're going to make our predictions next week, but I want to hear your thoughts on the competitors and just the groupings. Who do you feel is like a part of the match for their spots more than anything else? Who has a logical chance to win? For the women's side on my end, I have Alexa Bliss, I have Bayley, and I guess Liv Morgan, but after last night, I'm feeling less Liv Morgan and leaning more towards the fracturing of Judgment Day. Her taking another loss is kind of there for me in that. And I really am just leaning Alexa Bliss or Bayley. For the men's side, I genuinely don't know. And I know you're high on Cena and heading to WrestleMania against Rhodes, so I'll let you kind of dive in on that. But for me, I mean, I look at Drew McIntyre as a wild card, but Cena, Punk, or Rollins are the main 3 for me in my eyes.
Yeah, sort of similar boat as you with the women's side. I think Bayley and Alexa Bliss seem like the most logical choices. Like you said, Liv Morgan kind of seems like she's got her storyline with Bianca Belair and Naomi. Especially for Bianca Belair, it doesn't really feel like they have anything for her, which is, like I sort of mentioned in the notes here, like it's kind of booking malpractice. Like, how do you not have anything for Bianca Belair except for a tag title scene? But it doesn't really seem like they want to elevate her anytime soon, and so Bayley makes the most sense. For the men's side, I mean, I'm all in on the Cena angle. I think for the other competitors like Logan Paul, I think he's just specifically there for the spots for that kind of category there. But I'm really into this John Cena Cody Rhodes feud, at least the potential feud. I think they really want to spice up Cena's last finale. And I think the best way to do that, in my opinion, at least, Athan, is a title match against Cody Rhodes, one of the big stars of the company. And so I feel like that's just the perfect recipe there, having a final win in Toronto and picking up a title chance at least. I don't know if he's actually going to win the title, but still having a chance to compete for that at WrestleMania seems like the best way for him in his final year as a full-time competitor.
Definitely. I feel like I maybe am warming up to the Cena versus Rhodes angle. I think there's a lot they can do with it. The more I talk about it out loud with other people too, I feel like I'm starting to spin some possible narratives they could go with. But we'll have to see, I guess. All 6 competitors, both men's and women's, are set. Again, we'll predict next week, so make sure you tune in next week in the Ringside Review so you can hear who we think is coming home with the championship opportunities at WrestleMania. But as always, if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate it, Jason. Thank you for joining me once again for another edition of Ringside Review, and we will see you all next time.